Well, Gayle, I'm excited to be back in St. Matthew's, Wolverhampton, the place where I served my first curacy. And you're here too, serving your curacy.
Yes, I'm really enjoying it. It's a wonderful place to be. Yes. Everyone's so friendly and warm, and they've welcomed me from day one. It's great.
Yeah, I think I can endorse their warmth and friendliness. When I came in 1991, which was the year I was ordained a deacon, and then of course in 1994, when I was ordained a priest, which was the first year that women were allowed to be priests in the Church of England, and also the being in the first batch of that group here in the diocese. That was pretty special. I have an amazing recollection of coming out of the cathedral on the day of the ordination to the priesthood, and I can still see a number of older women who clearly had been faithful in the life of the church, faithful witnesses of Christ, but who were now in their 70s, perhaps one or two in their 80s, who this dream of ordination would never be fulfilled. And I recall my emotion that day. It was one of joy, but also sadness, because there were moments of pain for women who knew that they had been called. For me, it was since I was 14 years old, and yet the church denying it in a sense. But on that particular day, it felt as if I had given birth. But do you know the joy that you feel when you see this little thing in your hands? But also the sadness when you recognize the woman in the other bed who've lost her child.
Yes, and even though, of course, I'm much further down the line, you know, been ordained far more recently, I feel, you know, immensely thankful for all of those who struggled so hard as they did to be able to give us that privilege of being able to serve in ministry and to have the freedom to do that. You know, it's a wonderful thing, and every day, you know, it's something that I thank God for, being in this place. I just wonder about your particular story. How did your sense of call come about?
I always like to say that I had the good fortune of being born and brought up in Montego Bay, Jamaica. And we grew up in a little mission church, so we didn't always have a priest every week. And that was fantastic, not having a priest, because it meant that as lay people, and in particular as young people, this wise old lay reader that we had decided to involve us in the life of the church. So we were regularly reading and leading prayers and music, and then at age 14 I had the opportunity to preach my first sermon. And I can still remember the text. It was Psalm 8, "What is man that thou art mindful of him?" So bear in mind our tradition within the Anglican Church, where we have lectionaries. You don't get to pick your pet subject to preach on. So, you know, you look at all these readings, and here is this reading, and this one in particular, the Psalm of the day, stood out for me. And so that was what I preached on. What is man that thou art mindful of him? And you know, throughout that time, just this overwhelming sense that God was calling me to ministry. But it's very strange being called to something that doesn't exist. And so I had a conversation with God, and my conversation with God was, I believe that you have called me, and I'm going to remain faithful, and I will simply leave you to work it out. It took all those years for the church to say yes. So for me, it was a strong calling at an early age in my life, and I feel very much fulfilled that that calling is now possible, has been made possible in the life of the church.
It's a wonderful thing that you refer to there, every member ministry, and today at St Matthew's, that's something that we're really seeking to see built up. Vicar Matt and the PCC and the ministry leadership team together, we're seeking to see everyone enabled and to kind of see how that helps everyone to flourish, not just within church life, but to become the disciples that God is calling them to be out in their everyday lives and out in the streets of this parish community as well.
And that's the crunch of it is, at that last final prayer that we say together, send us out into the power of your Spirit, in the power of your Spirit, to live and work to your praise and glory. So we've only come in to enable us to go out. And that's the key. If those who lead in the church can bear that in mind, that what we're doing week by week is equipping the people of God to go out and live what it means to be the people of God. And that for me is what is exciting about ministry.
That part of liturgy is my favourite, actually.
Yes.
So I just wonder as well about when you were a curate, did things kind of work out in the way that you imagined they would before you were ordained?
You know, I don't know if I had any great big expectation as to how it was going to map out. I just knew that God was calling me. And when I was invited to serve my curacy here, I am a person who goes with my gut. When God speaks to me through my gut. And so when the gut says yes, then I know it's a yes. So the gut said yes. But then I gathered that the parochial church council at the time were thinking, oh no, can't have a woman. And because at the time the church was very strongly holding on to the sort of view that women should not lead in the church. That was the headship thing was a very strong point. Not, I think, for the incumbent at the time, but for many of the parishioners who were faithful. You know, they were faithful to God and faithful to the scriptures. And this was their interpretation from what they had read, and they wanted to stay true to that. And so they wrestled at the thought of having a woman, to the point that some people resigned from being part of the PCC. But do you know, I heard all of that, but it never deterred me from coming. And I never came with a sense of, how dare they not want me? It never occurred to me to feel like that. I just came with a real sense of joy. Why? Because God was calling me. And, you know, I've always felt that when God calls you, and you know that God calls you, then you know that the obstacles that are there, that's exactly what they are. They're obstacles. And so Christ will make a way. So I came, and I loved every minute of it. I loved it. I never once engaged with the congregation when I arrived about the rightness of women to be ordained or anything like that. I just didn't. I just got on with the job. I got on with the job. And that for me was about loving them and teaching them and walking alongside them and ministering to them and serving them. I had the most amazing time. I loved it.
And that's no doubt as to why there's so many of the older generation who still remember your ministry of them and speak so warmly of it.
Thank you. They loved me and I loved them back. I think I did one thing rather foolish though, and I think it would be fair for me to share this. Shortly after I got here, I had to have knee surgery. It was a day surgery, but I got my husband to drive me over to the parish. He was the curate at St. Peter's, Wolverhampton. And then I hobbled around on walking sticks. And I remember distinctly hearing myself thinking, I don't want them to say, see, she's a woman, she can't hack it. Or, see, she's black, she can't hack it. The sad thing for me today, 25 years later, I don't know if I wouldn't do it again. And that's the only thing that saddens me in all of this, the sense of still having to prove oneself. Not for God, because God has accepted me and blessed me and given me a very fruitful ministry. But having to prove oneself to my fellow Christians. It's the thought somehow that the fact that I had to think that, which was real, which was real, and the fact that I would probably still think like that today. Yeah.
So do you think that may be more to do with awareness of the wider church context, perhaps?
I think it's an awareness of reality, because there are still those in the church. If a woman, or even not just in the church, I think in society in general, if a woman doesn't do well in a role, the next time they're going to appoint someone, they'll say, oh, we had a woman and she wasn't that good, so we'd better not, let's change and go for a guy. But if a guy hasn't been that good, nobody says, oh, we had a guy and he was a little bit mediocre, so let's go. They don't do that. So there is still somehow that sense of what some regard as the norm. So, for example, what I hear people talking about is, now that women are being ordained, the feminization of the church. Now, I didn't hear them talking about the opposite of that when men were all in the church. It was normal, you see. So it's against that background that we're always having to serve and do our work, and always doing the best that we can, and the best of our abilities.
So just wonder, what is your official title now?
Oh, my official title now? Wow, gosh. It is an historic title. Although the title says Chaplain to the Speaker of the House of Commons, it is a chaplaincy to all of Parliament. I don't do prayers in the House of Lords because they have the bishops and they take turns doing their own prayers. But I do the prayers in the Commons Chamber. So this today, before I left, I did the prayers before coming here. Yeah. And we have a beautiful chapel, the Chapel of St. Mary Undercroft. So I do services of Holy Communion. This Saturday I have a wedding there. When I go back this evening, I've got a wedding rehearsal ready for the wedding. Okay. On Saturday I do baptisms as well there. Last week I was doing a Thanksgiving service for a parliamentarian who had died, and the general pastoral care. So it is really like having a parish, but it's just a different kind of parish. I also have a church in the city that I am priest in charge of, St. Mary at Hill. And there I do things midweek there, not at weekends.
That was my next question.
Yes.
Could you run us through a sort of general structure of a week for you?
Oh gosh, structure of a week. Well, on a Monday, I'll come into Parliament at the start of the day, but then I leave and I go into the parish. And then on the first Thursday in the parish, I have sung evensong, followed by a Thursday conversation where we have a variety of speakers. We're drawing on people who work in the locality to stop off, either to come during their lunch break or early morning before they go to work, or in the evening. So I sort of move between the two. Once per month I have a 7:45 a.m. for parliamentarians, followed by a breakfast meeting where again I invite in a speaker, and we finish sharply at 9, because I'm always saying this is not church, so all our services are 30 minutes because people got to get back to work. It's a place of work. So on a Wednesday 7:45 a.m. and then finishing at 9, then there's a 10:15 followed by an 11:30 in the chambers, followed by 12:45 service again. So the opportunity, and the Roman Catholics do a 6 o'clock mass on a Wednesday evening as well. Okay. So the opportunity for people to engage with things to do with faith is there. We have a space separate where people of other faiths can use, because the chapel is only used for Christian worship. The Muslims would have priority on a Friday for their time of prayer during those time Friday prayers. And, you know, I'm available for people to see me pastorally. And people know where I am. They knock on my door. They have my phone number. They call me.
So they'd always come to you, generally?
They come to me, or I loiter with intent.
Okay.
And see them, yes. So it's very much like a parish. You know, they are my parishioners.
And the other thing I sort of wonder about is what's gone on in between St Matthew's as curate and being this role now for Parliament.
Well, in between, when I left St Matthew's, I went to West Bromwich, Church of the Good Shepherd, where I did an associate priest role for part of the time, and the other half of the time I travelled around the diocese as officer for Black Anglicans concerns. It is an area that has always been of interest to me. Having grown up as an Anglican within the church, you know, as a Christian, I've always been concerned in this country why we do not see more people from a minority ethnic background engaged in the life of the church. So I want them to be more than just coming and sitting in the pews. I want them to be church wardens. I want them to be priests or deacons. I want them to be PCC members or holding other roles. And so I've always tried to pattern that. So you know, while I was in the diocese, I was on General Synod, because you know, I'm wanting to encourage people, be part of the Deanery Synod, be involved. This is your church. This is your church. So I did that for a while, 3 years while I was in West Bromwich. And then from West Bromwich, I then moved to London, where I had a parish. I actually had 2 churches. Holy Trinity in Dalston and All Saints in Haggerston. This is sort of northeast London, Hackney, that area. And there I again had a wonderful ministry. So I have been very, very, very lucky in all the places where I've been. I think it's probably my turn now to ask you, what has been your experience? How did you identify that sense of calling yourself?
I'd given my life to Christ when I was 13 through confirmation. So when I was 16, I went with my home church to the renewal day at Lichfield Cathedral. It was an Anglican event with worship and teaching, and it was just in the middle of the worship there that I felt that God was giving me a sense of call to serve him, to love him more in Christ in my life, and to live for passing the message of the gospel on, and that this would be through serving in the Church of England and growing into being able to be a leader for God in the Church of England. So, but at that stage I didn't really know what that would mean as such, so I felt that I should train to be an RE teacher, to be able to get skills and to be equipped, and I made this brilliant plan. I'll do that for 20 years, you know, and I'll be then equipped to be able to go forward and be assessed as to whether church would want me to be in this ministry of being a priest. So I was only teaching for almost 4 to 5 when so many things kept happening in my own church home life, and then also in my work life as a teacher, to show that I should go forward to be kind
ordination.
Kind of assessed and explored as to whether I should be doing this earlier on. So then I had a key weekend that I can't really describe any other way other than as a waking up experience, where once again it involved plans of you know, I'll make this plan, I'll stay up all night, I'll pray and wait for God to speak to me, but you know, that plan was changed. God stopped me. I had to go to sleep, and I woke up at 3:30 the following morning like that, and I don't get up really early like that normally. So I knew this was God, and he was prompting me to talk about all that had gone on in the past as I've been growing up at that point, and kind of like what's been going on through university and things like this, as well as teaching and my home background. So yeah, I just thought God was saying, yeah, this was the right time for all of that in that weekend. And
what is your home church?
St Mary's Bushbury, so it's just down the road.
Yes.
So similar in terms of an area of socioeconomic deprivation, you would say. Although growing up, I would say that I never lacked anything, and that's due to the care and kindness of St Mary's Bushbury. And my mum, she had a really lovely friend who'd bring clothes round from her daughter who was older than me to pass those down. St Mary's was just such a really great time for me, to the point where when it came for me to have to leave, that was the one thing that was sort of difficult for me, and I had to see how I could reconcile.
Fly the nest, fly the spiritual nest.
But it was really helpful that one of the members, he said to me, "You're only going from one part of the family of the kingdom to another part," and that was just really helpful and reassuring.
So St Matthew's has managed to nurture a whole stream of us, and that is wonderful, because it is not just about what we give to the church, it is about what the church gives to us as well. So that's good. I'm delighted that you are here, because I think, I'm sure the congregation would have changed. I look around and I can see that it is still being cared for. I'm hoping to come back for the anniversary celebrations, and I'm really looking forward to seeing a number of people, and I just hope that there will be quite a few people here from the past. It'll be wonderful to see them again and to be reunited with them again.
Looking back on my story, I just have so much to be thankful for. Being here at St Matthew's, that's how I've lived every day, and really, really encouraging. Even more challenging areas of ministry, I'm enjoying growing in those areas. So for example, with ministry to the addicted, this is something now that I'm studying in my curacy studies, as to how we can help congregation members to begin to be more enabled themselves to kind of draw alongside people encountering these complex needs and issues related to addiction. Because there's something I think really powerful within that about the freedom of Christ being displayed as they connect with the spiritual power and message of the gospel, but then also how that has an outworking in their life as a whole in a holistic sense. The topic of women in ministry as well, I'm just really mindful of how important it is that we can respect and honour the views of people who, for whatever reason, that's a theological reason, I don't mean misogynism, but for a theological reason that they can't seem to reconcile being able to have the ministry of women. So I completely agree with you that we need to challenge prophetically. It's about allowing the fruits of ministries to speak for themselves.
Yes, absolutely. I've always believed passionately that women are called to serve Christ. Passionately believe that, and have lived that. One of the challenges for the Church of England, is that we begin by saying that there are no theological reasons why women should not be ordained to serve in the church. We say that. And then, interestingly, then we hear ourselves saying, oh, but there is this group who have theological reasons as to why they cannot accept, I wrestle with that.
Yes.
But I wrestle with that in a way that does not impact on my spirit, that someone is rejecting my ministry. I don't get into a backwards-forwards conversation. When we were having the debate about women being ordained, I was right there. I spoke often about, yes, women should be, and if I'm called upon to say, yes, women should be, absolutely. I've always taken the view that this is God's church. It's not mine. It's not yours. This is God's church. And if it is God's church, then, and I believe that God has called me, then I should just simply get on with it. If there are those who feel that they don't want to have me, then that's their prerogative. I am not going to start giving energy in that area. They will have to serve God. Because it is not my church, they also have a place in the church. That's as far as I am concerned. You know, it's not mine to say you cannot, or you should not, or you don't belong. And I think there's a wonderful passage of scripture where Jesus tells the story of the wheat and the tares. You know, and the disciples are wanting to go out and get rid of the tares and leave the wheat. And Jesus says, let the wheat and the tares grow together until the day of harvest. Let it all be, you know. So I don't, you know, does it hurt sometimes the way people speak about, you know, women should not be, women that, you know, shouldn't have a place in the church and all of that? Yes, but you know what? You accept, you know, you accept the pain and you think our Lord suffered much more than that. And you get on with it. This, holistically, this is God's church. And if it is God's church, then God calls us all. And we need to allow room and space for everyone to flourish in the church. I think part of the challenge for us is we spend far too much time focusing on the things that divides us, and not enough time on the things that unites us. And so in my ministry, I've always modeled and practiced the things that unites us. And not the things that divide. It's not that you're sweeping anything under the carpet. I know, I have experienced it, but that is not what unites us. That is not the gospel. And the gospel is about the love of God in Jesus Christ. Not whether woman should be or should not be, or pink people or blue people or whatever.
To come together, and it's good that there's more ecumenical progress being made on mission now as well, through various charities and other mediums as well. So it's really positive times looking forward. You
know, I walk in here and there is just this wonderful feeling, surrounded by love, from, you know, what I felt when I was here. It was an exciting time. Well, my first post, as it were, so it was exciting, and I hope it has been equally exciting for you too, and enjoyable, because what was good here, and actually I've always been in the places where I have gone to find the parishioners who are people of prayer, who would pray for me, pray. And you know, I felt carried on the wings of their prayers. So it's really exciting to meet you and to see that you are also enjoying your time here, and that God is blessing your ministry. And it is my prayer and hope that He continues to bless your ministry.
So just to thank you for coming up from London and spending this afternoon with us. I hope, Rose, that you have a really great journey back.
A pleasure to meet you, and I'm really looking forward to their anniversary celebrations that I will definitely be coming to join in. Yes. You know, you go someplace.
Well, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, you go someplace and you leave a little bit of your heart there. So it's nice to come back up and to be reunited with my heart.